Hello, Stewart's 89. Well, it's another sad anniversary. Today's 4 years since my father died, and I still have some issues with the whole event. And this is my YouTube therapy where I just talk about stuff, and I don't know if anyone else will relate to it, but I felt like it. So, yeah, I didn't know my dad was, I knew he had been sick here and there, but I didn't know he'd had cancer. No one really told me anything. I got a message from one of my relatives around November of 2000 and must have been 16. Yeah, 2016. And I was told that he'd been moved into an old person's home, Ainsley, which is the dreaded old person's home in my hometown, which everyone was afraid of going to when they get old. My mum never wanted to go there, and she never did. And they were basically moving my dad out of his house where he'd lived in since 1966. My mum and dad had moved there 50 years before that, the same year as the first year of Star Trek, as I remember the dates. And yeah, they raised 8 kids there. They were there for a long time. Everybody knew, my dad. And when I went home at Christmas, I walked past the house. It was empty. And I went and walked around it, and it was bizarre because when my dad lived there, he built a bunch of sheds. Like there was a shed for my brother and his car parts, a shed for my sister and the horses for the all the food and hay and stuff. And then there was, he built a cubby house for us kids. And then there was a whole bunch of chicken coops and pigeon coops for my other brother who wanted to raise pigeons, and my dad had chickens. And then there was all these rabbit cages and guinea pig cages, and it was like a farm. But it had all been pulled down, all removed, and I'd never seen it like that. I'd seen photos when they moved in the early 60s, and there was just the fence at the back, and that's it. So it was very strange to go there, and there was nothing but the original shed and the house, and I was able to just walk all the way around it, which I'd never really been able to do, really. So that was strange. I sort of peeked in the windows and saw they'd pulled up all the carpet, and there was just wood, as the house originally had wood floorboards when my family moved in and stuff, and it was just really weird just to see this place that you'd seen your whole life, had for 50 years had been your family home, just be out now, like just empty. And I wasn't sure if I should visit my dad. I had visited him at his house a few times, and he didn't really acknowledge me, really. He didn't really pay any attention. We weren't close. I felt like I just didn't exist. I went away to uni and he didn't even know I'd left. And it wasn't fun. But on Christmas Day, we got the message that Dad had died. And it was just like, oh, okay. And then it turned out he hadn't died. They were repairing him, they were cleaning up basically so we could come in and see him, and everyone was preparing to go and see his body. And while they were literally cleaning him up, he came back to life. He didn't actually die. I don't know what happened. He sort of freaked out. He was like, what are you all doing? And then we all ended up visiting him on Christmas Day. Like the whole family came in. My mum didn't visit, of course. She didn't visit him. And I walked around there because my mum lived around the corner now because she'd separated from him and she was living in a separate house for years, and then she moved to my sister's house, which was out Low Head, which is where Ainsley is, so just about 10 minutes walk. So I walked over there and I saw some family members leaving. Most of them were all still in the room. And it was weird. It was very weird. Like my sister was taking photos of everyone with him, so I posed for a photo with him and it felt very awkward. And he kind of was happy to see everyone, but he wasn't, I don't think he quite understood what was happening. And yeah, chatted for a bit and then I just left. And then before I left at Christmas, I thought I should go back and visit him. I wanted to see him. There's things I needed to talk to with him about, but by the time I found out he was sick, it was too late to talk to him about anything because he was too frail and not with it, and it would have been unfair to have brought up history and problems to someone who wasn't fully with it and not well. So I just had to let all that stuff go, and I just went there, and I'd heard that he wasn't with it most of the time, and when my other family members visited, he wasn't really with it, and they didn't really talk to him or anything. But my sister said whenever she went there, he was wide awake and bright, and they talked and everything, and they all thought she was just making it up because they always thought my sister was making stuff up just because she was interesting, unlike some other people. I went there, he was asleep, he looked dead, just in the bed, just lying there. It was very strange. I just left. I went and sat in a little seated area outside thinking, I guess that's the last time I'm going to see my dad, because I was leaving the next day. And then I saw my sister drive in, so I was like, oh, okay. So she went in, he woke right up and was talking. We talked for about 45 minutes just about stuff, just in general, and he was fine. I looked around the room, he had pictures of family and everything, and it was nice. I wish I could have talked more to him about stuff, but again, he was with it, but still, it was just nice and pleasant. So I left, and then I went back to Melbourne, and then a couple of weeks later I got a text from my sister when I was in the city doing some shopping saying that he died, and I just went home on the train. I was looking out the window for quite a while, just looking. It was a half-hour trip, just thinking about it. I rang my mum and asked when's the funeral, what's happening, all that, and I was told there is no funeral. He is getting cremated. He didn't want a funeral, and that my sister or someone, one of my relatives, I can't remember who, was going to basically be managing it, and he was going to have a private funeral, a private cremation, and we just have one relative picking up the ashes from the funeral parlour or whatever, and then taking them to the farm where he used to live when he was a kid. The people there had agreed to allow him to have his ashes spread near a tree on the corner of, I think, the property which I think his mum planted or something. And she was just going to do that. One of my sisters was just going to do that because they couldn't, they didn't want a bunch of people traipsing onto their sort of, grounds and all that. So there was no funeral, there was nothing to go to, there was no memorial, there was nothing. So I was just like, oh, okay, so I just have no closure. I wanted to see everyone. I wanted to meet his friends, people who knew him, and you always see those stories where people share stories about, your loved one. You get to meet these people that knew them differently from you. And I was expecting all of that. I didn't have it, so I thought, fine. I kept getting messages from another relative letting me know the times this was happening, the time it was happening. I'm like, why are they telling me about this? Do they just think I might want to commemorate it at the same time and do something when the ashes are being spread, even though I'm not there and, it's not like an event? Then I found out later that it was an event. All my family was invited except me. And they all went onto the property, and one of my relatives didn't, I don't know if he didn't go, she didn't go, I'm forgetting who's who now, and they basically said they weren't going to go. I don't know if they showed up last minute or they didn't, but most of the family went, and they spread the ashes, and they talked and shared stories and stuff, and then they left. They had been to the farm when they were young, because I think one of the parents still owned it, or something, that they sort of knew. And I was very upset to find out that someone had lied to me. Either my mother had lied to me, saying there wasn't a ceremony, or the person that was organising it, that was telling her what was happening, lied to her, so they'd lie to me. Or so they wouldn't know. I don't know, but somebody lied, and I'm not impressed. Still to this day I resent it. The other thing I resent is that when they cleaned out my father's house, 60 years of belongings and stuff, No one kept a single thing for me. I don't have a single thing that belonged to my father. And what really makes me angry about that is when I was visiting my mother, when I was there, the next year, when my mother had died, and we're going through stuff, one of my relatives mentioned all the things that they'd gotten from my dad's and that they had, and they were showing me a medal, and I thought they were going to give it to me so I'd have something. And no, they were just showing it to me. They were just showing me what they had of dad's. And then another relative contacted me and said, "Oh, I was looking for these things of dad's. I was told you took them." And I'm like, I don't have a single thing. When I went there after he was dead, you guys had taken everything. No one gave me anything. There was nothing left. His house, someone was already living in his house. I don't have anything. I didn't have anything. And as far as I know, nothing of his was at my mother's. And I cleaned my mother's place out, most of it. I didn't do all of it, but there was nothing of his there. And this person insisted that they'd been told by this other relative, Sister Dearest is what we call her, or what I call her. So Sister Dearest was telling everyone that I took his things when she had them, and she still has them. But of course she doesn't want to share them with anyone else, so she lies and says that I took them. I have nothing. The only thing I have is a couple of toys that my dad bought for me at Rolfos, which is like Safeway in Tasmania, or was when I was younger. And we had a toy store, Croden's Toy Store. He went in there like twice with me and bought something with me. I have about 5 toys still that my dad bought for me when I was a kid. That's all I have to remember him by. I don't have anything else. And I don't have the memory of his ceremony or anything like that. I really was excluded from the whole thing. Not by everyone, not deliberately. I think the relative who was messaging me thought that I knew it was a ceremony and I didn't want to come because it was too far to travel, or I didn't have the money or something. I guess they figured there was some reason I wasn't going. They didn't realise I'd been told. I hadn't been told it was happening. I was told nothing was happening. So I resent not being told he was sick a long time before, so I could have had a chance to talk to him. By the time I found out he was too sick to talk to, and there's unresolved issues and things I need to talk to him about, I never got to deal with those. I never got to bring closure to any of that. I resent the fact I didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't get to spread his ashes. I didn't get to go. I don't know where that place is. I'd never be able to find it I'm on my own to go. Even if I went there, I don't even know where it is. And then the fact that everyone seemed to get something of his from the house before he died or after he died, and I got nothing. No one got anything for me, and apparently I took a bunch of stuff that I'm keeping from other people when it's actually other relatives that are hoarding stuff and blaming me. And they seem to be, because they're there, they can tell a lot of stories about me while I'm not there, and I can't really defend myself because I'm in another state. So we've got this family drama. It's just a couple of members of my family that are evil. And everyone else is just sort of dealing with them. But I'm not going to go into all that drama. But people were shocked when my dad wanted a cremation. They weren't surprised he didn't want a big ceremony, but they were surprised he wanted a cremation. And some people think that actually that was just one of the relatives trying to save money and having him cremated and just saying he wanted a cremation so they could save money on it. But then my mum said she wanted one, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You have to have a ceremony. You have to have something because you're dead. It's not about you. It's about your relatives. It's about who's left and them having to deal with you being gone, and an opportunity to have closure and talk to other people and get to tell stories and learn who that person was to other people and share. And it's an important thing that you have to have. What my mum ended up doing, well, I don't know, this is another thing I don't know about. My mum didn't want to be embalmed. She just wanted to be straight cremated, that's it. But I don't know if she made this decision or if it was made for her, but she was embalmed so that I and some other relatives who didn't see her before she died could see her one last time. The reason why some of us didn't see her was because we weren't told how sick she was. Some relatives knew how sick she was, but they felt that those people who didn't visit often because they didn't live close or were just very busy were neglecting her and didn't deserve to see her, so they didn't let on how sick she was. So when she died, it was a surprise, and some people didn't really get to say a last goodbye. So they did that to them, and then they did that to her by having her embalmed, which, as far as I know, she did not want. And I didn't want to see, but I went anyway. God damn it. It's not a good time to lose my voice. But I did go and have the viewing because I thought it would be a chance to say goodbye, but then, frankly, her corpse gave me nightmares for years on top of the other nightmares I was having of her being eaten alive by cancer. So it's not the best thing, I think. I don't know if it's the best thing if you want the last memory of someone to be of their corpse, even if it is a chance to speak to them, because I did talk to my mum. I did say things I wanted to say. After the other relatives left, I was the first one to get there, first one to go in, then everyone else went in, then they left. I was waiting for my sister. She took so long. I went back in and I was just sitting there talking to my mum while I was texting my sister and waiting, and it was just like she was just in the room. It was strange, but it was comforting on some level, but at the same time, whenever I thought of her for a long time, I'd just see her as this corpse which didn't quite look like her. She'd changed a lot from the illness since I'd seen her last. And of course, they never quite get it right. The person never really looks like the real person. So I wanted to do this video to talk about the experience of my dad dying, but also about the whole issue of funerals, burials, cremations, mourning, grief. You really need to give people an opportunity to mourn you, and even if you don't think you're important or you think it's too much of a fuss, you're not there. It's not about you. It's about who's left behind. And I don't think my dad took that into account, and I don't think my mother fully took that into account. One of my sisters was pretty much left with all the arrangements because another sister had done dad's arrangements, and she's like, well, I'm not doing both. And I think she was happy to get some help. I suggested a few things. She wanted to be cremated and put on the top of Mount George, which is the mountain which looks over Georgetown, which is where she lived most of her life, and where her family is. So she wanted to be able to look out over the hill, so we all decided that. And there was some drama where one of my relatives had property on that mountain and they wanted the ashes put there, but they were feuding with other members of the family, and the chance of them not allowing them onto the land to see the ashes was too much. And I said to my sister, no, we can't do that because we cannot be sure that they're going to not use that. And then if they sell the land later, it could be on someone else's land. We may not get any of us get access to it. So we put it in a general place, which we probably weren't allowed to do, but one of our relatives has some positions, so I think we just got allowed to do it. And we just found a spot near a tree. We put some rocks in sort of a circle, so we had the tree and the rocks to mark exactly where her ashes are, and it looks over there's a little sort of gap between the trees where it looks out over the town. And I think the last experience I had with my mum was there when we went out to look at the relative's property. One of my relatives and another relative were talking near the gate, and I just walked down to the end of this patch that was cleared out to build a house on, and just was looking out over the town from this sort of spot I'd never sort of looked at the town from. And I heard someone call out Stephen, and I turned around expecting it to be my sister. I figured she must have come from another area because she wasn't with us. But she wasn't there. There was no one there. And it wasn't my other sister either. And I'm like, was that my mum? It sounded like, when your mum calls out, and it's kind of like, where are you? Like when they want you to come home. It was sort of like that. And I'm like, was she not wanting to be there and she was trying to let me know? Or did she know I wasn't going to put her there? I already decided not to do that, and she was not happy with me because she wanted to be there. It was really strange, and I just went back to the car. I don't know if I think I eventually mentioned that to somebody, but eventually we got the ashes and poured them out. Each family, each of her children and one of her nieces, because one of her daughters didn't come, spread her ashes. I was the last. The niece, whose sister was the oldest, was the first to spread the ashes, so it was hard getting open, and I was having a hard time getting the last of them out. It wasn't a lot of fun, but afterwards it was really weird. I sort of asked everyone, does anyone have anything to say? And no one really wanted to say anything, so there really wasn't this moment where we all sort of got around and talked about her, and I didn't really feel a lot of closure from it. I went back up one more time, frankly, because there was still some ashes in this plastic bag inside this tub, so I rinsed it all out and took it back up and spread the last of the ashes in the water. So there was nothing of her left in this. It's such a strange thing to have to like get all the remains of your mother out of an object before you can throw it away. It's just really strange. And the reality that my mum is ashes on the top of a hill, I can't quite get my head around it. And my dad is ashes under a tree on a farm somewhere that I don't even know where it is. So when my mum died, I wanted to sort of talk about the funeral element of it, but since there was more drama with my dad and his burial, I sort of thought I'll just talk about it now. And I don't know, I just wanted to share this. I want to talk about it. Like I said, YouTube is sort of my therapy. I just talk about stuff. You're like listening like a therapist in my mind. It sort of helps. And the chance that someone else might watch it, someone else might get something from it. I looked around at the time when my parents both died, and I didn't see a lot of things of people talking about stuff. I just felt very isolated. I didn't really talk to anyone, because when your family's grieving, you can't really put your grief on them. You sort of talk about it, but you all sort of have your sort of distance. And none of my friends ever bothered to make any effort to talk to me about it. So I've never really talked about my father's death or my mother's death or any of the issues at the funeral. And I still resent the fact that I have nothing from my dad. I resent the fact that I'm being accused of taking stuff of his and having stuff of his that other people want. And I have absolutely nothing of his at all, except the toys he bought me when I was a kid, which are obviously mine. And that's it. And the fact that one of my family's sister dearest, the dear sister dearest, is acting like I've taken things when I haven't. Because there was some issue of that where other relatives who died in the past, people supposedly took their stuff and was hoarding stuff. Not valuable stuff, just sentimental stuff. It's not about money. It's just about having things and just possessiveness and controlling and that sort of attitude and inconsiderate. It's that. It's not about money or value or anything. Not even going to go into any of the other issues. Like people stealing money and accusing other people of stealing money because they're trying to deflect from themselves. But we won't go into any of that because I don't want to get sued. But yeah, my dad died 4 years ago. It's still strange, but I wasn't close to him, so it didn't affect me. I went a long time without talking to him. Often I'd just see him at Christmas, just by chance, if we were just passing each other on the street, or if he went, he was at one of my relatives when I went there. A few times I would make the effort to meet him, but he would just not respond. He just paid very little attention. He was like, "Oh, you're here, okay." That was about it. So that was a bit too much to deal with. So you don't make the effort anymore. Whereas my mum, I talk to her all the time and I miss her every day. And especially now, with all the things that are happening in the world, I don't have her to tell about it. And she doesn't know about any of this stuff. She doesn't know about Trump's impeachment or, the fires from last year and all this sort of stuff that I would have talked to her about. So it's still very strange. But I don't want this video to go on too long. It's already 24 minutes. I probably should have done 2 videos, one about my dad's death and one about dealing with grief and funerals and memorials and stuff. But I'm just going to put it all in the same. Just do one. But thank you for being part of my COVID therapy. my Corona Zone YouTube therapy, so I can't go to an actual therapist. I'm still self-isolating until I get the vaccine. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. If you have a similar story, feel free to share it. And please have a proper memorial. Think of the people that you're leaving behind and what they're going to need to deal with your death, and things that will make it easier for them. It's really not about you. You're gone. It's about who's left. And yeah, I really wish my family would be better. I'm going to go.